Today we have as our guest Miss Renita Wade, who is a candidate running for mayor of Selma. Good day, Miss Wade. How are you?
I'm good and well. How are you, Randy?
Doing fine, doing fine. Let's start from the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up,
Okay.
and where you went to school, and the whole educational piece.
Okay. Well, I am a native of Selma. I was born in Selma, raised in the community of East Selma, just off Water Avenue. My family's been in that community. I'm the fifth generation of that community. I come from the Garden family, which is a family of farmers. The home that we currently reside in with my mother is the land in which my grandmother was actually born on that land in 1920. So you see, my family has been in Selma for a long time, as early as the late 1800s.
Mm.
I graduated from Selma High School, Go Saints, and I went on to the University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Roll Tide. And from there, I got my degree, my bachelor's in accounting, majoring in accounting. I went from a degree in accounting to attending Stanford University and receiving my MBA. From there, I had an opportunity. I worked for United Way of Central Alabama and a couple of other places while in Birmingham, but opportunity presented itself to work for the city of Atlanta. And I took that opportunity, and I was there for approximately 10 years in the finance department, starting off as a financial manager, moving up to a cash investment manager, budget director, and treasurer. Those opportunities led me to learn a multitude of things in terms of budget management. I managed an $80 million at that time public works budget for the city of Atlanta, $4 million ethics budget, $12 million finance budget. I also managed $100 million grant that was called the Empowerment Zone Grant, which was the EZEC community, which was Empowerment Zone community. Those were funds in which the federal government awarded the city of Atlanta to do what you see a revitalization of the community in preparation for the Centennial Olympics. 4 million of that 100 million was allocated towards administration costs. At the time when I came, 2 million had already been spent for administration. Um, the mayor at that time, Mayor Campbell, felt that there was some mismanagement of administration funds. They brought it back up under the auspices of the city because before then it was separate as a corporation, a separate corporation. And when it was brought back under the city of Atlanta, that was my opportunity. That's where I came in to manage those funds, do some reconciliations, draw down funds from the federal government.
And having that kind of an experience, how has that impacted you and prepared you for running for mayor?
Well, it gave me the bulk of the experience that was needed because, of course, Atlanta is a major city, and so it gave me a bird's eye view of how operations are ran. Because in managing the finances, you not only get to see the compliance part of managing municipal funds, you also get an opportunity to understand the legislative process. So I was fortunate enough to do legislative reviews, do those preparations that was needed to go to the council while working in the budget. I was also had an opportunity to go to DC and meet with people at the community development segment of the government and to discuss transitioning from empowerment zone funds to renewal community tax credit. So I had an opportunity to see that grant from beginning to end, and also just meeting to go to see, where the CDBG funds are managed and operated. I had an opportunity to meet with the powers that be. So it gave me a multitude of experience, and not only that, but working with the community because with those funds, we allow grants to business leaders, business owners So I had an opportunity to work with those within the community to see what they were doing in action, and also to review for compliance to make sure that they were within the scope of services.
And so Atlanta has a council, mayor, government.
Yes, it's the same. It's the council. The mayor is not a voting member of the council, so it's set up the same as it is with the city of Selma.
Hmm. And how did they get along? What was it like? While you were there, did they get along?
From my experience, it's been years ago, but yeah, they did get along. They didn't always agree, but there was nothing near controversy as we have here. There was always a clear cut communication. Everybody understood their roles. And like I said, they didn't always agree, but they managed to manage each other. And I think that that's a key component of working together is learning to manage the people that you manage, you're working with, and understanding what their likes, their dislikes, and understanding how they prefer their preference for communication. Because if I'm communicating the way I want to communicate and not taking consideration of the person that I'm trying to get my point across, then they're going to shut down. So it's important to understand what other people's needs are in terms of communication.
Then you also worked in city government in Selma. What was that?
And that was really easy. I had a great working relationship with the finance, with the council. I also had a great working relationship with my coworkers, my employees. We didn't always agree, but we managed to work that out. I also had my first administration. Of course, it's no secret that Mayor Melton and I had differences of opinion. But my first coming in, I worked on the Evans administration, and it was very palatable for the both of us. There were things and information and knowledge that I shared came coming in, and there was information that he shared with me to get an understanding of how to operate and move between the two, the council and the mayor.
What was your title?
I was the finance director, also non-city treasurer.
Okay. And so, did you come to Selma to accept that position, or what brought you back to Selma from Atlanta?
Actually, there was a reduction in force, just like everybody. When the Bear Stearns situation happened across America, everyone suffered. Investment bankers, I had great friends, there were corporate lawyers that were on in the unemployment line. So everybody suffered, and including the city of Atlanta. And there had to be a reduction in force. So I was a part of that. I came back and worked a little while to assist another chief of budget for some time, but eventually the way the economy was, I had to come back home in all honesty. And then there was situations, family situations, medical situations where my help was needed. So it was just a win-win situation that I come back to Selma.
Why are you running for mayor of Selma?
I am running for mayor of Selma because in the course of me returning home, I watched the city and I watched the city turn, but not necessarily for the better. It has decreased in terms of economic development. We have big box stores that have closed down. Jobs are becoming few and far between. People are having to travel to other cities for entertainment. They're having to travel to other cities to have a good job, and that is not the Selma that I knew and grew up in. And so there is a need to help push this through. How can I contribute to that? I have a lot of knowledge, expertise, and an understanding of how the economy works, how the economy runs. I have a lot of connections in which I'm able to reach out to that in my course of years of experience working in government and building relationships to connect with people. I can't make promises. I'm not going to sit up here and give you a bill, sell you a bill of goods saying I can do this, I can do that. But what I can promise you is I will put my best foot forward. I will do everything in my power to make sure that you have the things that you need. We're working towards the desires of growth for Selma, and that we don't operate out of fear, but we operate out of faith. And that is very important to move in this city forward.
What is your platform that you have on your materials?
I believe that we need to work towards public safety. That's very important. Increase community policing, building better relationships with the community between the police department, making sure that the police have the equipment and things that they need, meeting with the police chief, understanding what his staff needs, what his concerns are, and how we can work together to build a better community. In I believe in building a better budget. It is important that we increase our infrastructure. Infrastructure is very important. When people look around and they say it's 10 years and we haven't gotten these potholes corrected and we hadn't done this, in order to do that, you must make sure that the city finances are in order. We can't just be spending off of air or spending into next year's money and we don't have it. We need to increase our credit rating. Right now, we don't have best credit rating. And why is this important? And why do I speak about this every time? Because as a finance person, I understand the importance of a good credit rating. A good credit rating allows you to defease bonds that we're talking about. We're trying to pay off for balloon payments. Those things, those are opportunities where we can come in if we have a good credit rating and we make sure that that's straight. We can reduce our liability payments or eliminate or refinance and actually gain more money to do infrastructure improvement. And that also helps understand. I have an understanding of what can and cannot be used because yes, we get money, we get gas tax money, and it needs to be clear that people understand. A lot of citizens are not knowledgeable of what these funds can be used for. We get gas tax money that comes in clearly for infrastructure. When you're paying taxes on your gas, those are things that could be used to fix those potholes. So I'm seeking alternatives and things what we can do to improve infrastructure. The other thing is economic development. Economic development drives our town. People say all the time, well, nobody's gonna want to come to Selma. They have a poor education system. We have high crime. We have drugs. All of that may be true, but people are willing to come if we advertise and sell ourselves correctly. Like I said before, I worked for the city of Atlanta. We had all those problems. We had a failing school system, which the superintendent was in the process of being charged with felony charges because there were things that were not so done correctly in the school system. Yet still, Atlanta continued to strive, and though that is because the powers that be knew how to market, knew how to sell themselves, and continue to sell Atlanta. I want to sell Selma. I don't want to sell the industrial parks in the city outside the city limit. I want to sell the industrial parks and work with the businesses here. They have land and have parks that they're willing to try to market to bring into Selma. I want to work with the chamber. I want to work with the EDA, but I want Selma to be just as visible because we have a voice. And I think in terms of economic development, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of leaders that have sold you fear to say, we don't want Selma to grow. We got to be careful with that because the small businesses here will be drowned out. Well, that's not so. There's an opportunity for growth for everyone. And if we believe, we can achieve. So we got to work together to build a better Selma, and we got to be ready and prepared for that change. So we need to market ourselves and sell ourselves on growth and change. Where your kids, they can go get a good quality education, come back here and use their engineering degrees, their accounting degrees. They won't have to settle by going outside of the city limits because there'll be jobs that pay them well and that they are marketable here, and they can sell themselves back home as their parents age, like my parents are aging, and be able to make sure that you're in good care. So let's move together to build a better Selma so that we can grow our city and our kids don't have to move far away to get a good quality of life.
Mhm. I'm sure you've been watching the tension that exists between the council and the mayor. What would you do differently, and how would you handle the city council if elected as mayor?
First of all, it's very important to understand each individual's role, each capacity role. The mayor has his role, and the council have their role. I am clear on this, and as you're aware, in the past, that's been a legal issue in terms of what my position was as treasurer between the council and the mayor. When everyone have a clear understanding and they respect each other's position, I think you can move forward. My interest is whether I'm over someone, or I have to. It's not necessary for me to be in control of someone, but it is necessary that I work with that the department head. If they're not cooperative, then I have an opportunity to go back and talk to the council and say, hey, this is not happening. This is what we need to do. We're going to disagreements are natural. You disagree with your parents, right? Everything is a part of nature. You're not going to always disagree, always agree, but you can agree to disagree and seek alternatives. So for me, it's to still get to the goal. We still have to get to the end goal. So what is it that I can do differently? How can we reposition ourselves? How can we have a different conversation? Both of us get some of what we want to to reach the end goal. And then in the end goal is serving our community. We are all elected by the people because they trust us, they believe in us. They think that we're going to go out and serve their best interests as opposed to our own best interests. And when you are a public servant, it's never about you, but it's about us, the community, and making those changes. So I do believe that conversations should happen, and sometimes there's multiple conversations. And you may not always disagree, but that is not enough for me to shut city services down. It's not enough for me to shut down between communications between me and the council. So I truly believe that it starts with conversation and understanding and know what each person's job is.
Now, with the appointment powers, um, how do you feel about in the present situation, the mayor does not appoint the fire chief or the police chief or the city treasurer, I believe. How do you feel about that, and would you want something different, or what are your thoughts?
Again, I have no issue with that because this was not a decision made by local government. This was by the state of Alabama legislative law. And all of us have an obligation to follow those laws. What's important to me is that we have open communication and that we can work together collectively. It's important that I'm informed and as the city leader to know what's going on within those those actual departments. And so long as the communication is clear and we have a constant communication, because I think it's very important that the mayor and the council communicate what's happening. There's nothing that should be going on that the council is voting on and making a decision without the mayor being made aware, and vice versa. There's nothing that the mayor should not be making the council aware. Now, I'm not going to get into the minute things, but the things that are important, it's important that they communicate and have an understanding in the direction that each are going.
Now, there's been some question about what is appropriate or even legal as it relates to the open meetings law.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have these conversations, is it appropriate that they be private, or should they all be public? Or would you be willing to meet with individual council members, or how would you just handle that conversation piece?
Hey, again, the law is the law. It's created by the state of Alabama, not by local members of the body of the council or the mayor. I think that it's important to follow those laws. There's a reason that they are in place. Conversations start, and they may start in a discussion, but ultimately, when we get down to decision makings and talking about the detail, that should be made openly in public.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you talked about the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you have some people that think that the only way to increase new revenues will be to increase taxes or to find to find new sources of revenue. What would you do to increase the amount of money that could be used towards the budget?
The first thing I would do is look at are there places in that budget that I can make cuts? Are there places where there's waste, or are there positions that are doing the same thing that we can combine into one? So, first thing I'll do is look at cost savings and assess the budget in that way. Then the taxes would be the last option that I would consider. Selma, I've worked in finance department, so I understand what it is. I understand the average income for the city of Selma. The majority of Selma is living below the poverty level. And so you have people that are homeowners that barely can afford the taxes that they have now. So that would be the last thing that I consider. But the first thing is I say I push for is economic development. pushing to shop Selma, because when you shop local, your tax dollars come back to us within the municipality. And shopping local is vital to the community. And you may say, well, we don't have anything here. Well, if we push for economic development and driving the economy and seeking opportunities where we can bring people in, then those dollars and the revenue dollars are coming. And it's also important to meet with businesses and talk with businesses to make sure that as a governmental entity, we're doing everything possible that's legal within the ramifications of what we can do, to make sure, and policing is one of those things, that we're doing everything possible to keep those businesses open. But the economic driver here is to shop local, so our tax dollars can come back.
Mm-hmm. Now, as mayor, as you pointed out, and city council, there's only certain things that each of you can do. What would you do if elected as mayor to improve public safety, to improve the infrastructure, transparency, with the community, and how would you enhance our tourism?
So the first thing, let's start with the public safety. In order for the community to feel safe or feel like we have good relationship with the police officers, they need to feel like they can trust the officers, right? And so it's about building relationship. I think that the past administration and the government has done a great job um, doing crime night out. The council people like Councilman Thomas, past Councilperson Benjamin, have done a great job with creating um, um, what we call those crime, stop the violence rallies and all of that. And I think that we need to enhance that and continue with that. But on the government level, there was a time when I was growing up, we seen the police officers riding their bikes, riding their motorcycles, putting their mobile van in the community. They need to be visible in the community. How do that? How can we do with so few officers? That's a conversation I need to have with the police chief. How can we increase visibility? I know how we can increase trust is that when the community calls the cops, and they say, hey, this is going on, we don't need to show up at their door making it obvious that they've called it, because fear of retaliation does happen, right? So we need to increase those relationships in terms of community and increase visibility of the officers in the community, and not find a way of not having them seen as an enemy of the community, because we're supposed to be protecting, right? So that's one thing. And then when we talk about infrastructure, I've said before, we need to make sure our credit rating is good. We need to build a better financial position in order that we can fix potholes and do the things that are necessary to eliminate some of the concerns. Trash pickup. I believe in public-private relationships. I believe in public alliances. I believe county, city working together. I believe sheriff department, police working together. I believe in these things can happen that cost little. There's either little to no cost to make things happen like that, because when you pull two resources together, they're always better than one, because you can do more with little. And we are sitting inside of Dallas County, so I don't see a problem where the county commission or the count or the county judge, none would say no to Selma for working with things that cost us little nothing, and including recreation, including policing. And if things are that out of hand, we know that we can call Governor Ivy and ask for assistance. There's nothing wrong with asking, even if we get a no.
Now, speaking of recreation, youth come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts, or do you have a strategy that you can implement as mayor that would help enhance recreation and serve our youth?
Yes, of course. An assessment really needs to be done with the recreation, because there have been times where the recreation has been completely defunct, and then it comes back up for a season or time because it's baseball season, and whoever have a special need for baseball season. But recreation should be year round. And working together with the county, to come together to put projects together that'll be of interest of the kids, because kids need something to do. We have a YMCA that is literally outside of the urban community. So I mean, in the areas that they're riding, it's not necessarily safe that they take a long walk over or a bicycle walk on near highway to get there. And we don't have bus services offered, so we need to work within, like I said, public-private relationships. You have the Catholic mission. What can we do? And those are the things that I'm looking at to say, hey, maybe we need to find ways that for these urban communities, like increase these parks. We had, when I was growing up in East Selma, those parks were the parks that we went to play baseball, we played kickball, and now they're dilapidated. How can we get grant funding? How can we get private donations to improve those things? So those are the things that I will look at in terms of how can we get funding. I've just heard about Running Shop Park having a major reconstruction due on, and I think that's great. But we don't need it just for Running Shop Park. We need it for all the parks, and we need a continual maintenance. Block Park has not been, it has been subpar at times, and it still needs improvement. We need to make that a constant effort, a constant part of our budget. Those kids need something to come to.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about education? I know the city has a limited role with the public school system. Do you have any thoughts on that?
What I believe is a continuation. The councils, even when I was the finance director, has done an excellent job. Anytime the school system has come to the council and said we need assistance, or they came to the mayor and said we need assistance, they took their discretionary funds and said we're here to help you. All the programs. President Young has an outstanding program with the youth. For there are programs. Former Councilwoman Benjamin continued to do programs. There are Councilwoman Thomas. I think that should be continue to be promoted and assisted. There's tax dollars, millage rates that go a percentage towards the school system from the city. Has always been like that for years, and I think we need to continue supporting them.
Now, you have a background in finance, and so I don't know how closely you've been studying the budget and the process that the council and the mayor go through to come up with an accurate budget. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I worked with the budget closely. I probably could do it with my eyes closed. And I know things have changed, budgets have changed, salaries have increased, but the formulas remain the same. I think that transparency is very important. I think that there don't need to be any hidden anything. What's on the table needs to be said on the table. When I came in, there was an issue about how the half cents tax dollars were received. There was a false narrative that that half cent money wasn't used for public safety, when actually it was much used for public safety to finance at the time those finance trucks and stuff like that. And then they wanted to show that there was a savings, or we had some kind of pot of money, but though that money was actually needed to have a balanced budget. And at that time, it wasn't being said, but I made sure that the council and citizens were aware this money is being used for public safety. It needs to continue to be used, and we need to fully utilize this in the budget to have a balanced budget. It's important that transparency is there, and that there are no hidden agendas, any hidden money for any reasons that we can't say, hey, this needs to be allocated to take care of this. And if we can't do something, we need to be honest about what we can't do. And they say that we have money for grass cutting, or we can't get the employees. Well, take that tax dollar savings, that salary savings, and use that to build public-private relationships. As I said, public-private businesses, use that to contract people to get the job done. Just because we can't hire the employees doesn't mean that grass doesn't stop growing and that we don't need to get the job done, right? So let's take that money that we are having tax savings, because we can't fill positions, and utilize it and where there is a need that's more dire. So that is how I view the budget.
Now, some people think that City Hall is top heavy administratively with people that are making too much money in salaries, in administrative positions, and your everyday workers are not being treated fairly from a financial standpoint. What are your thoughts?
I'm not aware of what this administration positions are, and so I can't speak on that. But what I would say for myself coming in, I will look at every department. I will look at the average of what, in comparison to what other people in the same position, whether they're grass cutters, laborers, what they're making, and make sure that they're within the market standard for our region, and to make sure we are having a sufficient staff and what it takes to do. We have 8 wards. What it takes to get grass cutting, and what, when you're meeting with a public works director, one of the first questions I would ask is, what does it take to get a one round to cut all the the city property in the whole area in each ward, and how, what kind of crew you need, what kind of dedicated crew you need to do this, what kind of dedicated crew you need for pothole repairs, what kind of dedicated crew you need for city cleanup of trash, outside of solid waste trash. Understanding what your needs are and what that time frame is, then you can formulate a strategy on how to get those things done. In terms of a heavy administration, I would look at it and see if it's necessary. What are these positions, making sure that they're not overlapping. But I truly believe that people should be paid what the market is. We talk about, we don't want our people living in poverty. We talk about retaining people, wanting your educated kids to come back and work for Selma and build a better Selma. How can we do that if we're refusing to pay them what the market rate is? So that's important, but it's more important to make sure we have adequate staffing to do what is necessary and needed to keep this city clean. We may have dilapidated buildings by property owners, but what can we do? We have limited control over what they're doing. But what can we do to control what the city is obligated to do?
Now, in order to be transparent, we have a lot of new technology.
Mm-hmm.
IT, your IT department uh, is involved in a number of different initiatives, and I guess we really have a public pay channel
Mm-hmm.
that comes along with cable, but that I don't know that it's being utilized as a public channel or not. What would you do? Would you do anything different when it comes to being able to get information directly to the public from the mayor's office?
Okay, I need to go back because I think I missed something important when we talked about transparency. As finance director, I reported monthly on the previous month on the expenditures, what the revenue was from gas tax to beer tax to wine tax. I gave a monthly report to the council. And I gave that before the council meeting that was publicly broadcast, right? So I think that that is important. Transparency in order to be in, there was also a detail of expenditures, everything that was spent, and it gave the ward, the account, and charged to, and what those balances were, where we were in terms of projection. And I made sure that the council was aware of that. So if they had no reason to say they wasn't aware of what was going on in the finances because the information was provided to them. So my plan is to make sure if that's not still going on, to put that back in effect and to have that finance director to have that communication with them and explain to them and ask finance any questions. Also with this public channel, as things are happening in transition, they need to be aware though that information needs to be available publicly, and we need to be able to sit down and have conversations, perhaps not all about the finances, but hey, this is what's going on in and around your community. This is what the council has approved. This is with those changes, and this is what you should look for. So my intent is to fully utilize that channel to make the members of the community aware of what's going on. But most importantly, if you're listening to that council member, that financial report is going to tell you the story. It's going to give you a guideline as to what happened. And I think that is important from the council. I can't tell the council what to do, but if there's contracts and things that are coming on that's going on with the city, sometimes it's nice to know the citizens to know, hey, we got a contract working with this business that's going to do this for the city, and let them understand what kind of services are being done, because a lot of times citizens are critical because they're not aware. And so we want to try to make them more aware, and that public access channel is a means to do so.
Mhm. Now, there have been some issues with uh, the trash and garbage. There have been some issues that have cropped up from time to time as it relates to the lawsuits and legal problems facing the city. Do you have uh, a particular approach that you would use to when and when not to outsource services, or to look at outsourcing the garbage, for instance, or should it be something that the city can do? What's your position on that?
I've worked for the city of Atlanta. When it got down to trash pickup and solid waste, when I came there, they were in the red with garbage services in terms of payments versus services provided. And this is, excuse me, it's not an uncommon issue. So outsourcing is a great idea because you, what that is called enterprise fund, which is supposed to be a revenue making mechanism. And so when you have it on your financials as revenue and it's always in red, it's not a good look for one. But the other part is the collection of garbage service. We are not in the business of collection, so we need to allow someone that specializes in garbage pickup and doing their own collection. We need to continue doing that. So that was a great idea to take it from under the auspices of the city and let it run independently. In terms of policing, that's why um, we have a department for code enforcement to make sure code enforcement is enforcing the codes and going around making sure notices are played and not relegated to a personal attack or a person, but to make sure that code enforcement is actually enforced and getting the job done. Code enforcement is not about making revenue dollars, but trying to promote the cleanliness and the ordinance of the city because they are necessary. And so, and I'll go back to tell people, not enough staff in police or police officers, that's across the country. It's not a Selma problem. It's a national problem. You cannot pay people enough to put their life at risk. And people considering more than just what they're doing for a living, they're considering their families and the needs of their, and that's fair. But what we can do is continue to do what we can to recruit, make sure we're within the guidelines of the average pay and the market value. As I say, we're not just policing, fire, everybody across the board. But there has been issues with parity in pay, the lack of, Atlanta did it 5 years later. They had an issue with police officers not getting enough salary. They brought it up to this 5 years later. It was another issue again. This happens. It's a cycle. So understand that this is not a Selma issue. This is a national issue. It's nowhere people won't go that they can't have enough police. I don't hear cities saying, "Oh, we got a full staff police department." They just don't broadcast their issues. And Selma has an issue with broadcasting their issues, but we have to find a way around it, even if that means hiring part-time officers or retired officers to come in part-time to help out full-time officers. There are other options, but we got to work together and review and work with the police and the fire chief to actually see what's going on. We can't resolve everything, but we can work towards trying to fix some of the issues.
But now, if you're outsourcing, what happens when we'll take the garbage collection?
Mm-hmm.
If they are not doing their job, if they're not fulfilling the requirements of the contract,
Okay.
how do you enforce? How do you get them to pick up garbage on time?
Okay, and so that is basically asking for a report. Hey, we contracting you. We allow you to come in our city and do this job. Can you provide us with the number of trash missing trash pickups, the people that have called in? Of course, the city is gonna always get a call from people whether we're all responsible or not, and let us know what's going on. But we've been getting these reports. Can you provide us with these services? And let's review this and see how we can remedy this. So my proposal with any contract, whoever executes a contract, whether it's the council or the mayor, it is our duty as the mayor to make sure these day-to-day operations are enforced, to make sure that these contracts are getting done, are being fulfilled. If they're not fulfilled, if it's the council that executes this contract, hey, this is the issue. We know you've entered into this contract, but these services have not been performed. Then I place it back with them to take a look at it and do an evaluation or work with that contract. But most of the time, those contracts do get fulfilled because someone has to review and sign off and agree that those services are being done. Now, if you are an elected official and you know that those services are not being done and you sign off on it, then you are held liable. And you are aware that that's not happening. But most people, most officials want to make sure that if they're paying a contractor for services, that those services are getting done. But in the event that it doesn't, and it's brought to my attention as mayor, it is my duty, my responsibility to review that, bring it back to the attention of the council, and have a conversation with that the person that we've contracted the services for.
Now, what about legal issues? How do you avoid, how do you keep the city of Selma out of all these lawsuits? And do you keep does the city attorney handle the majority of the for all of the legal issues, or is that outsourced? Or what are your thoughts on that?
As mayor and with a lawyer on staff, my expectation is before I go in, there's any execution of contract, that lawyer reviews that contract thoroughly, advise us on, when I say us, the council, as well as myself, on what the can and cannot do, what the ramifications are. And if the issue should arise, I expect that lawyer to be knowledgeable, well researched, with that information to come back before us and give us the information as to how we should proceed. Once you give us and we can make an informed decision, then we'll know which direction to take. There are times where it fleets us. There are some things that do get overlooked. I believe in conflict resolution. I believe in resolving issues as quickly as possible. Um, I'll do everything in my power to reduce the negligence of the city because I'm acting on the city's behalf. And I think that we have a lot of outstanding cases now that really need to be resolved. That there are some things that we can resolve, and if at all costs, let's resolve them so we can move forward.
And as we begin to wrap up, what is it that you'd like to say to the citizens of Selma as they consider who they're going to vote for mayor?
I would love to tell you, ask you to vote for me. But what I would say to you first is look at everybody's qualification, their experience, their skill set. Don't vote based on personal feelings or because someone can afford more campaigning but vote on the person that has the experience, the wherewithal, and the skill set to move Selma forward. People can say a lot of things and tell you a lot of things, but it's important for you to understand what everybody's duties are. I can't tell you that I'm going to do something that's within the ramification of the powers of the council. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you those things. What I'm going to tell you is that I have a lot of knowledge, experience. I work closely with council members, directly with previous mayors. I understand the operations of the city. I understand thoroughly the finances of the city. I understand what it takes to build working relationships. And with those things in mind, my qualifications, I've had over 16 years of municipal experience. I've been in government nonprofit at least 25 years. And with all those things in consideration, I am the most qualified for this position. I am a native of Selma. As I said, I'm the fifth generation of Selma. My family has vested interest in Selma. I can grow Selma. If given the opportunity, I will see Selma move forward. Maybe not overnight, but definitely I will work towards change.
Ms. Wade, we want to thank you for coming in and sharing your platform and your thoughts and your time with us. Anything else?
No, thank you, Randy, for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you.